America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. Go ahead and get the opening queued up. And we are the Black Athenians, and I come to you every Friday at 4-ish. I'm a little bit late because I have a special show planned today. And today, in general, the topic is going to be black media because I heard from one of my buddies said, well, you know, the problem with black people in the South is that they're politically moderate, and that's why you can't get a real black left. And I was like, well, there's a few things going on there. There's politically moderate, as in like, well, I don't think the government should, secure people's rights, and they should, fight for them themselves. And then there's a politically moderate that says, well, this government, white person's government anyway, they're not going to give us anything, no how, so we should just stop asking. Now, one of those politically moderates is principled, politically moderate. The other one is a politically moderate that's just, okay with white supremacy. So there are two different political, that's not, the second kind of thing isn't political moderation. It's like, I don't expect the government to actually do what government does. I think this government here is for white people, and as non-white persons, we should just, fight amongst ourselves and scrap what we can get. So we shouldn't be asking government for nothing. But who does ask government for something? Go ahead and give me the picture of the people in Chicago. So in Chicago, they were thinking about legalizing cannabis for recreational use or whatever, and you need a license to get it. And in order to get a license, you need to have capital requirements and then insurance requirements. And you know who was going to get that license? Who was going to go get their government license? To make a whole lot of money? Go ahead, can you make that picture bigger? Yeah. Who's going to get that whole lot of money? That room. What is it? That room. And that room is not us. Other side. That room. Right? So they also believe this government's for white people and they're not going to do anything for black people either. So there's a way in which the government secures rights asymmetrically, and that's the problem. And if your emotional response to politics is due to that asymmetrical relationship to government, that's not political moderation. That's you just ceding government to white people. Because they're there, and I've been at a host of other meetings, planning meetings and commission meetings where all sorts of white contractors go to get their good government check. That good government check comes in the form of a contracting job. That good government check comes in the form of a special license. That good government check comes in a subsidy, right? So this idea that white success in America is a matter of internal will working through the free market, it's just garbage, because all of those people are in that room looking for government privileges to sell a controlled substance. That same controlled substance, if you get people who look like us in that selling, will end you up in jail. And that's a problem. That's a problem. We aren't in that room because we don't have the capital requirements and the insurance to get the license to sell marijuana. So that's a problem. And before I go on too further, go ahead and hit the opening. Think about that.
To the beach, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no feature in your front.
Okay, so another reason that there's just a structural barrier to doing real black politics, especially in the South, especially in the rural South, is people don't understand this, and it's important. There is a media desert. There is a media desert in terms of political news. I have to do my little YouTube show, and then, if you actually want to help me distribute this YouTube show, you go to thefunkyacademic.com and kick down $5, $15, or $50 a month, or just give me one huge donation. And I could spread this around, or you could spread it around to your friends and your book clubs, or you could watch this video instead of doing your Sunday school. I think Jesus would approve.
It's the Lord's work.
It's the Lord's work, and then you could talk about what I'm doing here, and I think that's appropriate because I'm trying to get justice for my people. But there's a media desert. So as much as we talk about the right to vote doesn't mean anything if you don't get the information you need, if you don't get the ideas you need, which are distributed, and if the ideas you get are distributed to media through media that has its own interest. Because there are like, 6 companies that own 90% of what you see on the news?
I thought it was 3. I think it's 3. I'm just saying.
So when you hear 6, then I might be overshooting. That's a problem. So people talk about the Voting Rights Act, but really what the stranglehold on black politics, and actually the black politics we need in order to get the political security of our rights that we need as Americans, as citizens, as residents, isn't really about voting. It's about the control of the distribution of ideas. Like, we need black independent media, not black faces doing what white paychecks want them to do, because without that, without black independent media and without independent media in general, your vote is just the black vote of white supremacy. Like, you're pulling the lever filled with ideas given to you by people who want you to be a caste, a member of a lower caste. Right? So we need independent media in order to get the ideas disseminated. Honestly, if you gave me a radio station, I would trade in my vote. If you give me a radio station, I will trade in my vote. You can have my vote for the rest of my life as long as I get a radio station with a good old bandwidth. I want all of Georgia. On the radio, I will trade in my vote. Because it's not enough. Real political power isn't just real political power isn't just a matter of voting. It's a matter of being able to organize and speak to voters and distribute political ideas to those voters. And the infrastructure is so poor in the rural South and in black communities in general that the only ideas we get, the only political ideas we get, are fed to us by people who don't have our interests in mind. And I at least have a problem with that. And you know what? This show happens to coincide with a young journalist who came to ask me questions. And since I support independent media, and since I support people having the courage to screw up the courage to come and get their story, and I am the story of this particular profile, I invited the journalist in, and she is Cedar Shoals high school journalist. She's a real journalist, because a lot of other journalists are scared to come into this space.
We have a very clear definition here. There are journalists, and then there are those who have a journalism degree.
Right. No, she doesn't have a journalism degree yet, but she came into the war zone. She came into the war zone. Anyway, and I'm just grateful, and I want to actually do this interview public so everybody gets to see what an interviewing a black person could look like. And so we have a camera on her.
Yep.
If you don't mind, just you can say your name. You can just switch back and forth, and you know how to send it over. Yeah. So what's your name?
So my name is Brittany Lopez, and I'm assistant editor and reporter for the Blueprints magazine.
Oh, good. All right. So let's what's going on? What's on your mind?
So I want to start with you. Can you tell me how your childhood was and where you grew up and just your surroundings?
All right. So my name is Osei-Frimpong. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. LA proper, about 2-3 miles away from USC, which is in Baldwin Hills. It's funny because people call Baldwin Hills the place where there's black money, but if Baldwin Hills is the place where there's black money, there just isn't any black money.
They had a show on BET
where Baldwin Hills is the place. No, my mom was a single nurse. So I grew up in Baldwin Hills, California, but just in a regular house in Baldwin Hills, California. Now I can't move back to that house because I've been priced out. But back when I grew up, I think my mom paid $40,000 for, got a mortgage, whatever, and the house cost $40,000 for it. Now it's worth quite a bit more than that, but
can you find
we moved out. We moved out, and now we can't go back. So I did that from K through 7th grade, and then I moved to Orange County, California, which is a white flight suburb, and I went to school in Orange County, California, and me among the whites. And like a smattering of Asians. But that's where I went to high school. And then I went to UC Berkeley, which is in Northern California. And I studied philosophy. And now I'm a philosophy PhD student in Athens, Georgia. Had a ton of jobs and got married. And stuff like that in between. Yeah.
So can you tell me how you switched from living in California to Athens and why you chose Athens?
All right, so I was priced out of California. So let's make no mistake. Can you turn up the mic on her? You have to, Anyway, so I was priced out of California. I like California. I actually like Northern California. I don't like Southern California very much. I like Northern California a lot. I just can't afford to move to Oakland. I always assumed I would live in Oakland, California because it's dope there. But Oakland, California said it's not for you, Negro. And so I'm not there anymore. And I'm here. And I like it here because the weather's simpatico. And
What?
the weather's not bad. Weather's fine. And
That
cheap.
what was the fact that you used a word that even my vocabulary was.
Oh,
like,
simpatico. It's nice.
what?
The weather's fine here, and it's cheap, and that matters a lot to me because I don't have a lot of money, and so you could do things here without getting into debt that you can't do in Oakland, California, and I like Athens, Georgia. I just wish there was more political power in the black community because without that, Athens, Georgia is a great town with a 32 to 38% poverty rate. It's currently one of the poorest college towns in these United States. And all of that poverty, not all of that poverty, but a lot of that, it's pretty much white artists who haven't made it yet. But when they do make it, like, we'll be fine. Or, like, can go back home when they give up the art and get a job with their uncle's construction firm. And then black people who've always been poor. Like, that's Athens. That's Athens poverty. There is no Athens middle class. The Athens middle class is like 20 families out of 40,000. It's like the Athens middle class is like 20 families, and they just talk a lot, but like they don't. There is no real middle class. And the Athens middle class, like the white people wouldn't even call them middle class.
And let's be clear, we only have an unemployment rate of 4.6.
Right. And
they're working.
I heard
people work.
I heard it's
lower now.
Lower now. It's like it's in the high threes. So we just have a lot of working poor. We got Athens has a lot of working poor, and that's, I think, my calling. Insofar as I stay here, it's going to move the entire town from working poor to working stability and working freedom. Because if you're poor, you're not free. We live in a market economy. If you don't have money, America's got a 2-drink minimum. If you don't have money, you're not really free. You can't do anything because everything costs, which is fine if you have a job that comes with money. But it's not fine if you're just working poor, because then you're living to work and not working to live, because actually living means actually doing discretionary things. But you don't have the money to do discretionary things when you're working $9 an hour. Like let's be honest, $11 an hour, unless you have meager needs and you don't have any dependents, you can't, I don't know, how American can you be on $11 an hour?
You said without dependence?
Without dependence?
I mean, you can see a movie every 3 months.
You can say, and nothing can break.
Oh God! If something breaks,
nothing can break.
That's all I.
That's it. You're down for 5 years.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I assumed you meant they didn't have a car.
No.
You can't have a car.
You can't have it because now you can't afford maintenance on anything, including a relationship. You can't keep a marriage together on $11 an hour. You can't, try to like that. People all talk about the black divorce rate. It's directly tied to economic stress. You can't keep a marriage together on $11 an hour, not in these United States, especially when your spouse is watching TV and all those Shonda Rhimes shows and they have white aspirations. No. So yeah, that's where I come from. What's up, Brittany?
So you are very political aware, and you speak out. You speak out about the issues that black communities face. Can you tell me who or how many people, or who are the people that have influenced you to be this politically aware, or your ideas? Right.
So, so my radicalization came rather slowly. It came rather slowly. I studied philosophy in undergrad. When I first started college, all I wanted to do was run track and chase girls. And I think that's, where I was. That's fine. And then, my back started hurting, and the guy next to me in my dorm studied philosophy, and I thought he was pretty cool, so I just kind of studied what he studied. And that worked. That worked until I realized that there are problems in the United States that they're political in nature. Like, you're not in control of everything you do. There's this notion that anyone can do anything in the United States. If I want to live next to, a stable black middle class community. I can't do that. Like, that's an aspiration I have. And I don't think it's a worse aspiration. Some people get to, if you're white and you want to live next to a stable white community, you get to do that.
Yeah.
You get to do that. Like, as a black person, if I want to live next to a stable black middle class community, I don't get to do that. And that's like a form of freedom that I should be able to have. I should be able to live in a community of, like, you know, there are black people in the United States. I should be able to see them and assume that, like, they are, like, economically stable. Right? And that should be a form of my freedom, because real wealth isn't just a matter of what you have in your bank account. It's a matter of what your neighbors have. Real wealth isn't about your bank account. It's about the people at your wedding. And if you can't afford to have a wedding, that pretty much answers your question right there. Like, how about how much wealth you have? And, like, so real wealth isn't about you. It's about how many people you're one phone call away who can actually write the check. Who can actually, they can write you the check and you can lose the money.
Yeah.
That's like, to be able to make it in America as a business person, you need someone who can write you a $10,000 check and then, like,
have it not work
out. And you can still show up and say, like, well, it didn't work out. And then to say, like, well, like, we tried. We tried. That's what real money means.
And for some people, they get to try again and again.
Again and again and again. The fourth business. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley because I went to Berkeley. And they fund those guys for their fourth business with the assumption that the first three are going to fail. They fund them for their fourth business. Oh, Broderick, that might be in the shot when I take the video to her. Yeah. Oh, no problem. So they assume that the first three businesses are going to fail, but the fourth one's going to be like Facebook. So that's kind of how Silicon Valley funds entrepreneurs. Black people, we can't afford to fund entrepreneurs like that. For us, it's like, I might be able to give you an extra 50, but I'm going to need that back, and you better not blow it. Because I had to make trade-offs for that. Right. So
yes, that's exactly, especially here locally.
Yeah.
You know, having recently experienced that, you know, having someone be awesome enough to help start something, we did everything that everyone said we should do, and have it still have so much trouble is really a rough thing, because you're looking like, well, I can't do this again.
Yeah. So, you know, in order to actually participate in America, you need money to lose. And we call it investment capital. So a few things radicalized me. Can you give me the wealth graph? It's going to be on my camera. So, yeah. Go to my camera, and then it's one of those. Once you realize how poor black people are, and you get past the glitz and the glamour, once you realize the true wealth, like, there's no real black money, especially since money only makes sense in terms of other money. So there's no real black money, because for there to be real black money, it would have to compete with white money. And black money can't compete with white money, which means there's no black money. Money only makes sense in terms of other money. Like, that's the way market economy works. Well, market economies work. So, yeah, go ahead and give me the graphic. Give me the graphic. So if your competitors are on the blue line and you are on the red line, you're not really competitors. And you see that actually in Athens. Because in Athens, you run into a lot of people who say, well, you know, my grandparents used to own a house here. And, you know, my grandparents used to own a house there. Or my grandparents ran this business there. And then what happened? What happened was white people wanted their business back. And big money took little money. Because if you're on the red line, what's up? Yeah.
Oh, there was a picture up. It should have been as well. My bad.
Okay. All right. So,
if you're on that red line, you're chum.
Yeah. If you're on the red line, you're food for the people on the blue line. Right? You're just holding it there. You think you own something until they get their lawyers and want to take it from you. And if you're on the red line, you can't afford lawyers. So they'll just take it. And so I started doing the math and reading the numbers, and I just saw that it's not just me who's broke and out of luck. It's all of my people who aren't faking it. A lot of people are faking it. A lot of people are confused on what it means to be black in these United States, and that confusion will be a problem for you. And you can get out of high school maybe. You can even get through college maybe. Yeah, I don't have my glasses on, sorry. What's up?
So you mentioned the unemployment rate in Athens, and I guess the overall unemployment rate.
Right.
And thinking that it might be good to mention how that compares to the unemployment rate for the black community in Athens?
Yeah, well, Fred Smith said it's really for the black community. It's like 10%. Like we talk about it being 3%, but it's really 10%. Yeah, I mean if the job is honestly, if the only job you can get, and you can get a $10 an hour job in Athens. You can get a $9 an hour job in Athens.
I'm about to say, actually, you should probably drop that down to 9.
You can get it. I can go out today and get a $9 job in Athens. They'll treat me like garbage. They'll give me $9 an hour, and it's not worth it. Like it's not worth it in America to get a $9 an hour job. So like, that's a problem. So workers need some sort of power, and that's kind of what I'm here to do. Brittany, what's going on?
What do you think needs to change here in Athens in order for black communities to prosper?
Good. All right, so when we started the United States, it was for landed gentry. You know, in order to actually participate in our democracy, you needed to be a white male, land-owning person, right? Landed gentry and independent professionals. Those are the only. That was the democracy part of our democracy. Those are the demos of our democracy. All right, then we started extending rights to other people, but they didn't understand. It's not the sexism and the racism that makes being a land-owning white male an important part of being a democracy. It's the independence. It's the independence that kind of property or that kind of money buys. That's why you can be like an actual member of a democracy. So you can extend the rights to everyone, but if you don't extend the conditions of that independence, then you're not really free. Right, and that's why the makeup of Congress back in 1789 was, independent professionals and landed gentry. And the makeup of Congress today is independent professionals and landed gentry. Because those are the only people who could actually make moves in America, right? Because we never secured rights for employees. So we need worker rights in order for all of us to be free. Because if you're scared of losing a job, you can't really be independent. The only reason I can do a show like this is because I'm not scared of losing my job. I got kind of I roll the dice on these things. So
and you're very comfortable with not having a job ever in the future.
Yeah, and depending on who you talk to, I might not ever get a job anywhere in the future. So if you want my kids to eat, I'm going to need you to go over to www.thefunkyacademic.com and kick down $5, $15, or $50 a month to keep me going, given the quality of wisdom I think our people need in order to get over, in order to be free in America. So we need to not only extend political rights as in the vote, but we need to extend economic and social power to people who aren't independently wealthy and landed gentry, right? So you need a workers' movement, because advanced economies only work if you have employees. And black people have only been slaves, indentured servants, or like degraded. The private market will not absorb stigmatized communities at fair wages and working conditions. So black people have only ever been a variety of dependent slaves. So giving us political rights doesn't mean anything if we don't have economic power. And in an advanced economy with employees, you need to secure employment. So you need a workers' movement. You need a workers' movement where workers are treated like employees. Pretty much I need black workers to be treated as if they're white employees. Because white employees actually get like vacation time, they get a 401k, they get insurance. Those $10 an hour jobs that I'm talking about, they don't offer none of that. And they treat you like garbage, white employees. So you need unions and you need some sort of worker movement, because we came over as labor and now they barely need our labor. So we need a guaranteed status in civil society, which comes with a job. And we need that job to actually treat us with dignity, as if we're white. So I'm going to need you to treat me like I'm a white employee, not a black slave. And that's actually a harder sell to make, because black people en masse have never been treated as if they're like good middle-class employees. That means, So we need a workers' movement. And the workers' movement can be multiracial, but I'm going to need to also make sure that black people get, they get treated with the same security, with the same fair share of risk, not too much, not too little risk, and get paid, a decent amount, not $9 an hour, $22 an hour, $25 an hour. Because I know white people who don't even get out of bed for less than $25 an hour. $25 an hour, well, I don't know, I might. So like that's not black
I
life.
rush out of bed for $25 an
I
hour.
will rush out of bed. I'll do all sorts of things, and PG-13 things. I'll do R-rated things for a little bit more than that. So what I will tell you is you need a workers' movement so that you end black poverty. And the only way you end black working poverty is by securing black people jobs and securing them say in their working conditions, which means we're talking about unionizing. We need to unionize black workers. Everywhere black people are doing a job, which is a lot of places, they need to be able to negotiate with their employees, not as one person, but as a mass. And say, like, we need you to pay us all fairly.
Great example of that is I recently learned, I won't name any restaurants, that we have a local restaurant, fast food chain, that literally every night has one person closing down the whole place. So like they spend the last hour and then have to close the entire place down by themselves, and they are not at the $10 an hour mark. And so we can imagine what that must be like.
Yeah, so like that's not having a fair say in your working conditions. So the only way to get black people working in the United States and not be treated like slaves is to dignify work in the United States, so that anything we do with a sense of security and independence and a fair say in our working conditions. So you just not only need to make black people whole through reparations, you need to get rid of the conditions that made slavery so attractive. So you need to secure all workers in these United States. That means the workers in prison. That means the workers without their papers. That means the workers who come from stigmatized communities. And I think that the best way that happens is through mass unionization and worker organizing. And that also means you need to show a lot of these employers that you will shut it down. Because nobody respects you unless you're willing to shut it down. Shut it down. Whatever it is, it goes down unless you pay us a secure amount.
I believe they called it the blue flu.
The blue flu.
The blue flu, when everybody calls out the same day just because you know you're not feeling well that day.
Yeah, and so I mean, in Athens you can do that just by like threatening actions on football game days. People come to the table and negotiate if you do that. So that's what I say, and to show them that you need to be recognized, because there's a way in which power only recognizes other power. So you need to show that like, I just need a fair share, and I need you to come to the negotiating table. And if you don't come to the negotiating table about wages and working conditions, I will shut down this operation. And until you do that, white people are still just going to run this like it's 1865. So you need a workers' movement. That's the way this comes forward. Workers organizing in order to actually be treated as if they're full human beings. Right? So the problem is we don't teach this in school. Right? We don't teach unionizing movement in history class. We don't teach. That's the only reason we don't have like child labor and 7-day work weeks and all of these atrocious practices are because workers organized and threatened to shut it down and shut it down. And a lot of them, died and got like it was a mess of a movement, but it actually won working people dignity. And with that dignity comes the independence that then you can go on and participate. So we need to seize the means of ideological production, seize the narratives we tell about what freedom means, and include some sort of social inclusion and economic power into that narrative. And an economy that depends on employees, that means we need to empower employees as dignified adults and not just like the owners and the landed gentry. Right?
So you mentioned that communities need to be independent in education. As a philosophy teacher assistant, what would you change?
Right. So, there are a few narratives that go on. You don't really have power unless you have power over the idea. So we need independent media. Right? We need people to understand. Listen, if there weren't already libraries in the United States, do you know how hard it would be to get those passed? You know? So imagine me going door to door and saying, like, all right, so in order for us to have a democracy, we're going to need a place that's staffed full of books that people can just take out and that has internet reception for people who don't have access for it at home. Do you know how hard it would be for me to pass that? But it would be true. In order for us to have a democracy, we need actually control of freedom of information, which includes the distribution of ideas. It also means the production of ideas, right? And so we need to talk about the conditions of democracy in a more like robust way, and not just the vote, but actually the control of the ideas that kind of give you content about what to vote for, right? So if those aren't independent and not like driven by the profit motive, who profits off your misery, that's going to be a problem. And so we need to talk about educating people for independence and for the fight for independence. And for us to go from here to there, you need a lot more people who are going to actually teach the fight. Because right now we teach black kids if they work hard and keep their head down and then they're nice, that the world's going to work out for them. And for a few it does, right? For a few it does. That means you move out to a white community and you've forsaken, you've escaped. Success equals escaping other black people. So as long as success means escape, that's not real success. That's not real success. Right? Success means everybody gets up.
And I think we talk about this a lot, that success, what it looks like is not just you succeeding.
Everybody around you.
Because if just you succeed, you're just supporting everybody.
Yeah, you're a target. You can't move without getting hit up. Hey, man, can I hit you up for I got this great idea for a business. I just need a little seed funding. Like, no, like that's not success. Everyone is always hitting you up. Like success is everybody having a quality of independence. And that way you can have real relationships with people who aren't just looking at your wallet.
So when you have to show up in a screen mask to get your check from the lottery, that's a sign that we have a big problem.
So success means actually being able to work with people as equals. And you can't work with people as equals if you need them to pay your check and you don't have any other options. Right? That's not success. That's an asymmetrical relationship where you're just kissing their butt to make sure that the check keeps coming in. And that's a lot of black America. And then the black successful people will say, like, well, if you just kiss that white butt long enough, it'll pay off. But that's not any sort of life. One, that might not be true. And that's another thing. That might not be true. You might just be kissing that white butt and it just doesn't pay off. And on the promise that it might pay off and it still doesn't. And then what have you done? What have you done with your life? So that might not be true. And two, even if it does, like it paid off for you, but that means you had to forsake all of your cousins. One of the best jobs in America for black people is selling out other black people. And that's a problem. Yeah. That's a problem. And like I'll say, I think Obama, that was Obama's job. And he got paid very well for it. And I say this because
he just bought a nice new house.
Yeah.
He's no longer a community organizer.
No, like, selling out black people is the best job you can get in America for a black person. But that still won't be success because, you've just sold out your community. So you can't actually have real relationships. And so if you can't have real relationships, can you really be free? So as a philosophy professor, I kind of talk through and try to get the ideas about the kind of material and cultural conditions of freedom. And they're not as obvious as I just can do whatever I want when I want to. Because that's not true. If that were true, if that were real freedom, we'd all be living in the purge. So like there have to be institutions, but that means we need power in deciding what those institutions are. And that means we need some sort of institutional standing, but we don't have standing right now. We're barely even people. Barely even people.
So you previously mentioned that black communities need to empower through education. What books would you recommend to individuals that would empower them?
All right, so they need to empower themselves through education, but education alone is not going to be enough, right? So you need education, but you also need a healthy understanding of the risk you need to seize power. You need the fight. If you give me, I can educate you all you want, but I can't give you the fight. So what we need to actually get serious about as a cultural intervention is teaching black people to fight. But that means we're going to lose a lot of fights too, and disproportionately lose them. But the fight is what's important. And understanding that the struggle is plural. the book I would recommend to kind of clarify the fight, I think Musa Baradaran, The Color of Money, is a fantastic book for anyone who thinks that, black people have money. We just need to get it together. No, black people don't have money. Like, not enough to compete with white money. What we do have is risk and purpose. And so if we put that risk and purpose together, then we can scare white people into getting us justice.
And luckily, recently, Sean Combs, better known as Puffy, came out and said even he does not have the money to do that fight.
Right, so Sean Combs can't get distributed. He has Revolt TV, but he can't get distribution over Comcast because they don't want it.
Yeah, they don't want him in their lower packages, so his stuff only shows up on their highest end, which doesn't hit his market.
Right, because we low people.
Yeah,
like he has a black show that only people with premium cable can afford.
Yeah.
We don't do premium anything. Yeah. Like, that's not our place.
Well, it is. He made a
We're not premium people.
He made a great quote that Comcast is handing out billions to these other stations through advertising. Revolt's getting millions.
Yeah. So that's a difference. And he's got costs. P. Diddy's got bills to pay too. His scale is a bit bigger than mine, but that's so you need education. The book you want is Musa Baradaran, The Color of Money. I think is probably the most readable book that anybody can just pick up and read all the way through and kind of get a good sense of the fight. And if you do that, come back. And Lester Spence wrote Knocking the Hustle. I really like that book because it actually says something about political organizing and political mobilizing that's necessary. So those two books, I think Bettina Love's book, what is it called? Broderick, do you remember what Bettina Love's book?
Something about driving.
I want more than to be free, or
I want to do more than survive.
I want to do more than survive. Bettina Love's book. I haven't actually read it, but everyone tells me it's good. I read the other two, but I haven't read Bettina Love's book. People tell me that it's actually. I want to do more than survive. I want to do more than survive, and that's pretty much what I'm telling. Like, survival is not freedom in these United States. $9 an hour you could survive on, but why? Why? You can't buy your kid anything. There's no Christmas on $9 an hour. You're still waiting for something to break.
There's barely always dinner on $9 an hour.
Yeah, so I feel like those books, Bettina Love's, Musa Baradaran's The Color of Money, and Lester Spence, Knocking the Hustle. Those three books, I feel like they get the message across.
And I know Mercer's book is available on Audible.
Yeah, it's a good. The lady who writes it.
Yeah. Well, and the woman who read it, you could hear was learning as she was going.
Wait a minute.
Like,
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Where's my check? So that's where we're at right now. But it's not just education. It's the fight. Because you can have all the education you want to, but if you're not willing to fight, you're not going to do much for our people. You might not even be able to do much for yourself.
So at the moment, literacy levels are disproportionate compared to white students to black students. What do you think needs to change in the school curriculum to better serve black students and privilege them as the same as white students?
Right. So right now, as of 2018, the numbers have got ticked up a little bit. Some 15% of Athens, Clark County third through fifth graders were reading at level. 15%. 15% can't read. And...
Or not 15% can't or can?
Can't. Oh, 15% can.
Yeah,
15% can. 85% can't read at level. So that's a problem, but in a way in which that's not really a problem for a lot of these teachers. A lot of these white teachers do not care. They will promote you and just move you through as long as their checks keep coming through. And that's a problem. So there's a lack of urgency in a lot of these white lady teachers. And at the elementary schools, at level, it's pretty much all women, and most of them are white. That I find disconcerting. So I need to move. I need all of them to go home. I need all of them to go home. And if they say, well, we can't do it, then I need you to organize and articulate exactly what you need from the state legislature so you can do it. So if you're not either teaching black kids to read or articulating what you need and fighting for and risking for the services you need and the supplies you need in order for you to do your job and teach black kids to read, you just got to go because you're in the wrong place. And I know you've been told that you're in the right place, but you're not in the right place. You're in the wrong place, white teacher. So that's not too much to ask. Either you teach black kids to read or you organize with other teachers to take a stand on what you need in order to teach black kids to read. Anything else is you're just cashing a check on black bodies. With just a human resource program, a natural resource program. You go in, it's just like the Congo. You go in, you take what you need, and go spend money wherever you need. Well, like if black boys and black girls are going to be more than natural resources, then I'm going to need you to take a fight. Well, more than just like a census for your check, a make-work program for white spouses. That's what a lot of schools are. So I'm not a fan of that. And go ahead, hit me with another question.
When it comes to the social studies curriculum, it doesn't include much about black culture and history, only much about slavery. What would you like to change about that?
Well, the problem with the social history, it doesn't actually include a lot about white culture and history either. Yeah. Like they like, I would be a wonderful white studies professor. Because would you believe that, a lot of white teachers leave things out? I got lynching photos off the, we don't talk about white terrorism for what it is. We don't talk about, I don't know any black man over 50 who's not scared of white people. I do know, but I think maybe, can you feel both hands? Can you, Mary, do you think you know 20 black men over 50 who aren't scared of white people?
I have to
and Mary knows a lot of this. You gotta make a list. I may be able to get to. I don't
want a lot to you. This is Georgia. If it's written down, it's so.
Yeah, so I know I might know 7. There's 7 black men over 50 who aren't scared of white people, because in order to make it over 50. You I don't know, something happens and you end up in a position where you're structurally scared of white people because you don't want to jeopardize your white check. You don't want to jeopardize, some white relationship you have. But all of these things keep you from telling the truth to white people about themselves. So we don't teach black culture and history, but we don't really teach white culture and history either. And I think that's a problem because white people are confused about themselves and we just kind of live under a low level of terrorism. Look, a lot of people think what I think. They are just terrified to say it and are horrified that I'm saying it.
Yes.
I mean, a great example is Mildred Rutherford's rewriting of the history of the Civil War being about states' rights. Yeah. And when you're in school,
and happy slaves.
Yeah,
happy slaves.
Happy slaves.
Happy slaves. And Mildred
Rutherford
Rutherford
that badly.
Yeah, Mildred Rutherford got a dorm named after her, and she's got a street named after her in Athens.
She has the most expensive dorm on UGA's campus named after her.
Yeah, and all she did was spend the second half of her life telling white people how good they are, and telling black people how they just deserve their lot, in life. And so we're not really good about black history, but we're not really
honest
about white history either. And actually, you need to change the behavior of your oppressors, not just the disposition of the oppressed. And the real fight, and this is where I kind of get in it with other black people because they're if we just organize ourselves, if I put my pennies with your pennies and I put your pennies, we all put our pennies together, we can go compete with those white $20 bills. And that's just not how America works. So it's not, organizing within ourselves is good, but you remember the fight is we need to take the fight to white people. And if you're scared to take the fight to white people, you're not actually serious about black liberation. There is no independence. So let's say you're black and you take over a little town. Well, that town's in a county that's going to be white controlled. So you take over that county. That county's in a state that's going to be white controlled. So you take over that state. That state's going to be in a nation that's white controlled. So you just need to at the town level, just take the fight to white people directly. Just take it. Just take it. And anybody who's telling you that you don't have to take the fight to white people in order to make it as a black community, not a black individual, a black community, is just lying. Or they're just confused about what it means to be black.
So one of my sources describes you as Athens gadfly. Would you agree with that statement, and why?
Gadfly.
Gadfly has a noble tradition in my vocation. The first gadfly of history was the person who actually, made it popular. Was a guy named Socrates in 400 BC. He said, "Look, Athens, the Greek Athens, not the Georgia Athens. You're a great city, but you guys are a little bit addicted to money, honor, and safety." And it's keeping you from the truth. And I just want you to understand the truth about yourself. And we could be better if we just had a better relationship with the truth and stopped worshiping money and honor as much. And they were like, "Yeah, but I like my money, so we're going to put you to death." And they killed Socrates. But on Socrates, his closing statement, he said, "You're going to put me to death, but, you're going to feel sorry and people are going to laugh at you through history. And it's not going to end very well for you, in the long term." And Socrates was right. Socrates is famous. Nobody remembers any of the other Athenians. And he was right. The truth is more important, especially if you want to be free. You can't have freedom without truth. And if you're scared to speak the truth, you're never going to be free. And you won't even be in a free relationship with other people. So if any of your friends are scared to speak the truth to you, they're not really your friends. Or if you are scared to speak the truth to your friend, they're not really your friend either. Because you can't even have a real relationship if everyone's scared of the truth. And this is what Socrates was saying to the people of Athens. So yeah, I am a bit of a gadfly. I want to kind of, Socrates in the Apology, he talks about he wants to kind of just wake up the horse. He just kind of wants to wake up the Athens to be the thoroughbred that it is and run swiftly. I just kind of want to wake up Athens. And, you don't have to be popular to do this work. People assume that MLK was popular. Look, my mom was alive when MLK was doing things. And you know what she was doing? Keeping her head down with all these other people who were keeping their head down. People assume that MLK was super popular towards the end when he was talking about actually a poor people's campaign and giving dignity to workers. No! He was a troublesome Negro. People were scared to have MLK come to their church because they didn't want their church to get bombed. And these were black people. Keep that troublesome Negro out of my church. These are black people. So the idea that you can be both popular and doing good work, or the two things go together necessarily, that's never been true. Never been true.
Jesse Jackson and Andrew Jackson said that, the two things that Dr. King tried to teach them most was that to do the work, you were going to have to give up a love of life and a love of money.
Yeah. And you can't be scared of jail. Yeah, I just went over this lesson with my students yesterday, actually. Yesterday. I had put a list on the board of people who had been to jail and then people who hadn't been to jail. And I was like, Jesus, Paul, Malcolm X, apparently maybe Bagby, Muhammad Ali, my co-producer, myself. We just went down. All the people. And on the other side, it was Ralph Bunchy, Arthur Ashe. I mean, these are good black people too. But Angela Davis was on the good side. So I'm just saying, you can't, if you think you're going to do the good work, you can't be that scared of jail. It can't be the most important thing, because the government will use your fear of jail in order to control you. So you got to do it the way soldiers think of going to war and battle. It's not something you run towards, but if it comes your way, it's not something you run away from if you care about. What's up?
You engage.
You engage.
Comes your way,
you engage. You engage. It's not something you run to and I want to kill people, or I want to battle, or I want to go to jail. No, but if that's between you and freedom.
So you are very outspoken. I assume you receive some criticism. Can you tell me a little bit about it and how you respond?
From time to time, I do receive some criticism.
Maybe even a visit from the FBI.
Yeah, I got an FBI visit. I get death threats weekly. I'm what you call a free Negro. I'm what you call, the rare birds in this part.
I want to thank her for her questions because these are all great questions.
Listen, I thank you for your service. But yeah, I'm what you call a free Negro, and free Negroes will from time to time get pushback. I will tell you that. And if you ran into a Negro who never got any pushback, that person's probably not free. Yeah, I can tell you that right now.
If everybody loves him,
he's not doing it for me. He's not doing it for me. So yeah, I mean, I get death threats. I get all sorts of people threatening my job, they threaten everything. Like, I don't know, threatening my life. Yeah, I get all the threats. And yet I still live. And would you believe I'm healthy? So if something happens to me, I also have a life insurance account. That was a condition of continuing to do this show. If something happens to me, it wasn't like natural causes. I am healthy. I just had a physical. I've had everything checked. I am free of all diseases, and I bike everywhere I go. So I am very healthy. If anything happens to me, it was a plot, and I'm going to need you to shut it down. Whatever it is, shut it down. Yes.
I'm just curious about what are the more common criticisms or critiques that people would.
Okay, well, get them all. Well, I'm divisive. As if black people have ever gotten anything in this world without divisive.
It's funny. I just posed this question: if Army's divisive, what does that make intersectionalism?
Intersectionalism as in like
intersectional feminism.
Intersectional feminism.
All you do is point out that all black is not equal, or that all people are not equal,
and that we need to listen to the most marginalized of the marginalized, which they assume is going to be black women or queer black women. Yeah, so I'm drawing distinctions that what's divisive. Put up the graph again. I don't make this up. That's divisive. Not only is there a blue line that's high and a red line that's low, the blue line is going up while the red line is going down. That's not me dividing. That's math. So the most common guy, you're divisive. Yes, I'm divisive because I want to acknowledge the divide.
There's not one purple line.
There's not one purple line. I will stop being divisive when there's a purple line. I want one line, and I at least want the lines going the same way. If one government is making two disparate outcomes going two different ways, that's not me being divisive. That's the government. I'm just pointing to the government that's asymmetrically securing rights. So people say I'm divisive. And then people think that, I don't know, there's some people still think that you'll get justice in the United States by being nice to white people. I don't think so. I think you'll get justice in the United States when you actually talk about what it means to be black and white in America. I think that's when you actually talk about, it's not about individuals in America, it's about family wealth. Because real money is, first of all, old money is a lot of money. But real money isn't really your income, it's your inheritance, or it's at least income plus inheritance. That includes your cultural inheritance, which means the quality of people who are at your church and at your civic institutions and your cousin. When I heard that Epstein Catering, is it Epstein? Epstein, yeah. Yeah, Epstein Catering got a 15-year exclusive contract for the Classic Center when the Classic Center was built. Do you know what that means? Not just for the person who got the contract, but for anybody related to the person who got the contract. That means you can go 10 years on hard drugs, and then as soon as you get a little bit clean, not even all the way clean, a little bit clean, you got a good job with your uncle at Epstein Catering, who's managing black people. That's what that means. So that's real wealth in the United States, and that's real power in the United States. And just talking about that doesn't make me divisive. It just makes me talking about the truth.
I would say the other criticism, I hear a lot more of the criticisms.
They're scared of me.
Yeah, they're terrified. For some reason, the little guy is the problem. Yeah. But I hear a lot of, he's angry. And anyone who's ever actually met Army will find out he is the least angry person. I'm much angrier than Army. Ask anyone who's been to a meeting with me.
I'm not.
This isn't coming from a place of anger.
No. It's just I'm addicted to the truth. I'm addicted to freedom, and I want freedom for my people, and I want to live around. And for me to be free, I need my people to be free because I can't be both free and alone. That's why you get these Negroes in the suburbs that are like really kind of depressed and sad because they're free and alone. No, I don't want to be free and alone.
I lived in Woodstock, Georgia when Bob Barr was their representative. I walked into Target, I saw Bob Barr and realized I was not in my space.
This is not your space. So I want to be free around a multiracial group of people and everybody's doing fine. And until that happens, I'm not free. So for my freedom, I actually just articulate the problems. I'm not particularly angry. I'm just not going around. And honestly, a lot of the people who think of me as angry are just have been habituated into having their butt kissed by black guys. Right?
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that they assume that because you're honest, you're not sugarcoating things.
No.
Like that's the problem.
Yeah, no.
Like if you said it nicer, they would hear it.
No, this is the great thing. You know, if he just rephrased his arguments in ways that were nicer, more people would listen to him. No, that's never been the case for nothing. No, this idea that if I just said it nicer, people would hear it better. No, that's never been the case. Like if I say it nicer, you'll run over me. That's the history of blackness in America. And you'll smile and nod and continue running over me. You'll listen when I threaten to shut it down. You'll listen when I actually shut it down. Like if I can make your life uncomfortable, then you're listening. So I just need to get other black people used to the business of making white life uncomfortable until they negotiate with us.
So you had previously talking about how sometimes you may make some white people feel uncomfortable. Yeah. You had previously said, and I quote, "Some white people may have to die for black communities to be made whole in the struggle to advance freedom."
Yes.
To my understanding, you were referring to Heather Heyer, the white woman that died at the white supremacist rally. Yeah,
not just her though. White people have always died in the struggle for the John Brown, like all those a handful of pastors who came down they were freedom riders, not freedom riders, but they marched with King in the civil rights movement.
The 200,000 Southern soldiers.
The 200,000 Southern soldiers who, the moment we stopped thinking the moment we committed to the promise that white life is more important than black freedom is when we just gave up on black freedom. Because I'm in the South now, and in order to actually be free, that means we need a fair share of political power and land. And I've been told that if you start talking about taking white people's land and political power, they'll use their guns. And if they threaten to use their guns, are we just going to let that threat stand? Or are we still going to take secure justice for black people? So the white backlash is real. And I actually think the white backlash is what governs our politics. Everybody's scared of the white backlash. They're not scared. They're scared. The only reason they're scared of me is just scared I might trigger the white backlash. But the white backlash is what everybody is scared of. I'm just not scared of the white backlash. I welcome the white backlash because that's just what we're going to have to go through if we're serious about securing black people's freedom. And if we're not willing to risk the white backlash, then you're not serious about black freedom. And the white backlash is as sure as gravity. It's going to come. You just got to understand that that's the price of freedom. And the white backlash is going to be violent. They're going to shoot first, and there's going to be collateral damage. Like Heather Heyer died, and she's just collateral damage. Like she was killed by a white supremacist.
And to give a clear example of this, it was the governor of Arkansas who said we must defend conservatism without guns.
Yeah, well, the governor of Kentucky said we need to fight this every way possible, and that means including guns if the ideological and spiritual ways don't work out. If we can't keep them in control with our media and we can't keep them in control of our Jesus, then we need to keep them in control with our Glock. That was Bevin. He recently lost re-election, but he was elected. And it was close. And I think it was but there was a recount. It was so close. So it's not like they repudiated him. And he said that years ago, and it was still popular. He just went after teachers, and then he went after too many white teachers. And if you go after too many white teachers, they get pissed.
I think it was Neely Fuller Jr. that said if the white people in power truly wanted to change, we wouldn't be having these conversations.
Right, so you got to force it somehow, and there's going to be backlash. What people aren't honest about is how much of our politics is controlled by the fear of white backlash. The fear of white backlash.
So, to my understanding, you are fine with this backlash, but what would you like them to know?
What would I like them to know?
Yes, in terms of what is justice.
What is justice?
equal?
Black people need a full share of political power. For example, Athens has an $8.5 billion GDP. $8.5 billion GDP. And a 30% black population. Right? So that $8.5 billion GDP, I should be able to see 30% of that in the black community. I had 30% of that should have moved through black hands. And 30% of that should be held by black hands too. It shouldn't just move, not just move through on its way to a white utility company. I held the money and then I paid some bills. So I want to see full economic inclusion. And anything short of full economic inclusion is not freedom. Both Martin Luther King Jr. and I want to say Ken Dias said that integration doesn't mean much if you can't decide what's on the menu. Can't open up a restaurant. Can't afford to feed. It's funny. I was at the National, which is a local spot in town where all the white people go to make deals. And I was like, I'm the only black guy in here because none of these people are comfortable talking to black people. Then the other black guy people are talking. The other black guy.
Two simultaneous?
Yeah, wow. Two black people at the National, which is the white nonprofit spot in town, because in order to talk to white people about serious things, you have to kind of not be scared of white people.
And one of the other things that, people will talk about, well, we have so many nonprofits that are here to help you. As someone who works with nonprofits, I've learned that the biggest problem is they're not trying to get themselves out of jobs.
Yeah, no, a soup kitchen is not freedom. A soup kitchen's soup, and that's good because I'm hungry.
And you can't be fooled by white tears.
Oh, God. No, and they will be weaponized. You can't, Roderick says, you can't be fooled by white tears. This is going to come through. I don't know if white people are going to die. I suspect they will if black people are going to be free. But white women will cry. That's just going to happen. That will just happen. If you think you can get through this movement without white women crying, then I don't know, you're not serious about the movement. That's just going to happen, and you're just going to have to look at them and say all right, well, okay, now about my check. Yeah. So I know you tried hard, and I know you really care about these kids, but I'm going to need you to teach them how to read. And if not, that means I need you to go and do something else.
You can tell me how much you love our kids, but if you aren't teaching them how to read,
you're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong job. So, and these white tears will be weaponized. You're just going to have to go through them. So I've been known from time to time to make white women cry, and then also press my claim for my people, because that's just the struggle, and I do it publicly too, because that's just a struggle, and it's got to be public, and I support the media. All right, last question.
Okay.
You get two now.
Okay. So, whenever you speak out, many people tend to claim that you are a radical leftist. What would you like them to know, or what would you respond to them?
I'm a radical leftist. I would assume I want my people to have rights. I want my that was always radical. That is radical. It wasn't in the Constitution. That is radical. I want my people to have rights, and the idea that justice comes without going to the root of freedom, and that's what radical means. It comes from ratio and radish. It all just means root. Yeah. Well, so I go to the root of the problem, and the root of the problem is we need some sort of economic and political freedom, economic power and political freedom that will come with a quality of independence that just means secure interdependence, right? So yes, I am, insofar as I do not think that the status quo of black, of this graph is appropriate, and it's not going to be fixed with poems and stuff. I am a radical.
But I don't know that you're a radical leftist. I mean, you talk about proper ways to do capitalism.
Yeah. Like I'm a leftist insofar as I think we should secure rights.
Yeah.
So like I think we need to secure property rights for property owners, but also workers' rights for workers. I think we should secure health care. So if that's radical left, then yeah. I think we need to secure people's rights. I think they need to be the right for social inclusion. That means I want not just white cannabis owners at the lottery to get a marijuana license. I want to secure full participation in these United States, because it's only with full participation that we can be free. Else we're just the black flesh of some white master.
Also, I would kind of like them to define what's radicalized left. We have this bad habit of just, putting titles on people. Oh, this person's a progressive. What's that really
what's the
mean?
status quo? What I don't believe is black people saying like, well, if we just kind of shop black, we'll do it. No, we got pennies. Like, we can shop black all you want. And then when someone comes and takes your house, they will take your house because they have real power. So, like, I don't think that that's where I am on the radical left, insofar as I think the government should secure our rights, which means also our social and economic rights, not just the vote. Although it could do that too better. I think things need to change. And if you don't think things need to change, you're just comfortable with like generational black poverty, and it's looking bleaker. That blue line, that red line was going down, and it turns out 3 out of 5 black people born in the middle class are going to fall into poverty. The kids are not all right. The kids are not all right, and not just your kid. Like all of the kids are not all right. So last one.
To finish up, I want to ask you what future projects you're working on.
Well, I do need to finish my PhD. So my biggest future project is
before they run you out of school.
Before that, because they're going to keep trying, because I'm going to keep mouthing off. I need to finish and get my doctorate, and a lot of things cost money. Right? Money and time, but I can buy the time if I had more money. So if you can go to funkyacademic.com and kick down $5, $15, or $50 a month, I can actually start hiring some kids to do some more work for me and get distribution. Because political literacy, in terms of like clarifying the fight, is what I need to be doing and what needs to be done. But that only comes with, good journalism. And good journalism is kind of scared to do the kind of work they need to do on the fight, because that will lose sponsorship. And
I want to thank the chat, because they've been kicking in.
Good, thank you, the chat, for kicking in. And so I need to kind of grow and scale, but first I need to finish my degree. I got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. They got to make it to like 9, 6, and 4. I'd like to do that, but I'd like to grow as big as I can. The more money I get, the easier it is to grow. And that's just the truth. All right. So first things first, I want to thank say your name.
Brittany.
Brittany. Thank you, Miss Brittany, for taking the time. And I look forward to did you get what you need, do you think?
I actually have a few more questions, but I hope we could book another interview.
All right. You get 2 more. Go.
So you previously mentioned your kids. They currently go to a Clark County school. What would you like to change about the current school and education?
The current Clark County schools. Well, you need an education in the fight, right? So we need to be honest about white history, including the history and standing white terrorism. We need to be honest about black poverty, its origins, and the mechanisms that keep it sustained, because the fight is actually about like redressing this. If you're not going to redress it, then like you're not in the fight. You're not in the real fight. And you're just setting kids up to be poor in the next generation, right? So that's what I'd like kids to be honest, to know the real structure of the fight. And that means teachers need to understand it too. So I need to do teacher training. These in-service days, they need to have me. There's also another book that I didn't mention before, Daniel Allen's Education and Equality. It might be Equality and Education. One of those. The first essay in that, I think I'm going to teach next semester, it talks about the problem isn't STEM education. We know enough STEM. The problem isn't STEM education, it's a political distribution of goods. So we're not going to get justice by just knowing more math. I know a ton of math. That's not going to get justice for me or my people. I know how to take integrals and set them equal to 0, and I know how to, instantaneous velocity. I know the right-hand rules. I know a ton of math, a ton of physics. The problem is the political distribution of goods that are already there and that are already being produced. So like this idea that we'll fix ourselves through STEM education, no, we'll fix ourselves through organized workers getting paid instead of $9 an hour, $22 an hour. That's what justice looks like. And we need to teach ourselves that that's what real community stability is going to look like. It's not going to be the individual come up who made it as an individual and now gets their picture everywhere saying, well, if I made it, you can too. But that picture is an ideological bludgeon to actually keep the 300 people blaming themselves for being broke. I need those 300 people organized and fighting to get their fair share of America.
In the topic of talking about your children, what would you like them to learn from you?
Well, this is my legacy. I might not die with a lot of money. I read a lot of civil rights leaders died broke. But, I also saw a documentary on Maynard Jackson, and his kids love him because they love the fight. He was like, well, he wasn't there enough, but man, every time he was out there, he was doing it for us, and I just kind of knew it. So this is my legacy to my kids. They'll have YouTube videos, and I download them just in case,
YouTube has some issues.
YouTube decides that they want to erase me. I've downloaded these videos, and so I gotcha. So this is my legacy to my kids. I want them to understand the fight and actually understand what dignity and freedom looks like in the United States, because I think that's the most important legacy you can give to people. And a lot of parents, even black parents, screw this up because they don't teach their kids what it means to be black, and then their kids end up confused and then blaming themselves, and because they don't know about what the fight is. And the fight is for our community to get a fair share, and that's going to come through probably a multiracial working class alliance, but it's going to understand that all of the structures keeping us down, including the ideological production. So I'm happy that you're going into the ideological production business, and I'm also happy that you're doing the quality of media that will help us actually, clarify what's going on.
I want to thank you for your time today. Fight the good fight.
Did she say which school she's with, or?
Yeah, thank you. She's a journalism student. Yeah. So you're a journalism student at one of the premier high schools in the area, and go ahead and say what school you're with.
So I am a junior at Cedar Shoals High School. I am an assistant editor and reporter for the Blueprints magazine.
Blueprints. Mm-hmm. Nice work, Cedar Shoals. Thank you. And Cedar Shoals Journalism. If you're watching this, keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. These are the kind of stories I at least think need to be told.
Someone definitely needs to be telling these stories in this town.
Yes. Yes.
The difference between journalism and having a journalism degree.
Yeah. All right. And all right. So thank you for your time, and I will see you not next week because of Thanksgiving, and I might be, feeding my face, but I'll see you in 2 weeks. Are we ready? Peace.